Hello and welcome back to this video lecture series on this YouTube channel on SIRONE, your online nursing educator, and I hope you're learning on this YouTube channel, especially if you're a nursing student. And please share this YouTube channel for those who are enrolled in this several courses, several subjects with the respective semesters. And thank you for being a blessing, especially in this time of pandemic. And thank you for supporting and sharing the knowledge that you have gained from this video lecture series and YouTube channel. For this lecture series, we're going to focus on the subject health education. Okay, so as we all know, this is very important, especially this time of pandemic, and with the use of the technology, we can really provide proper health education. And just a tip: be sure that you read and you validate. Okay, your sources of health information. That's a very important thing to do before you practice it or before you believe in it. And as a future health educator, for you, it is very important to be accurate, to be providing health information that is really that is rightful. Okay, and you always see to it that it's for the best of your patients, or if you're in the academe, it's for the best of your students. So speaking of health educator, for our first topic, we are going to discuss what are the hallmarks of effective teaching in nursing, or what are the hallmarks, what are the features, what are the characteristics, okay, distinguishing characteristics of an academician, of an educator, of a clinical instructor, a lecturer in nursing. But this not only pertains to nursing, but can also be applied to other courses. Okay, so before I start, you can think of someone, especially of your teacher, maybe your current teacher or your past teacher. What are his or her um, features as a teacher? What is her or his characteristics as a teacher that you admire the most? Okay, so that is a very important. And maybe if you want to become a teacher later on, a clinical instructor, a nursing lecturer, that you can adopt and apply it in your own career later on. Okay, so yes, maybe there can be one or two teachers you have in mind, and I hope they really influence you well. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so hallmarks of effective teaching in nursing education, or as a teacher, as an educator, as a lecturer. So I handpicked this one, and it's from the book of um, Sandra De Young. Okay, health education book. Okay, so first we have professional competence. So when you say professional competence, I think there are six actually here in this lecture. Hallmarks of effective teaching in nursing. So first we have professional competence. So first, when you say professional competence, you are genuine, okay? You show genuine interest and confidence, okay? You show interest in what you do. You show interest in your students, okay, most especially, and you show interest to your patients if you're in the clinical setting, because nurses also in the clinical setting can be educator. And these hallmarks that we are going to discuss can also be applied by a nurse in the clinical setting. Okay, so again, he or she shows genuine interest in patients and also in students, and most especially, he or she displays confidence on what he does, okay, and how he deal with patients or students. Okay, confidence is very important in our profession. The teacher, the educator, the nurse in general should be creative also and stimulating. Okay, and when you say creative and stimulating, you should excite interest, okay, from your students. Okay, you make them feel excited every meeting that you meet, or every meeting that you have in your class, with your class, or every time the patient will be meeting you. Okay, so excite interest. Okay, stimulate excitement. Okay, I know there, especially if you're students, right? You have this teacher in mind. You have this teacher in your past that excites you. You would, especially when you know the schedule. Okay, it's for example, it's maternal child nursing time. Our teacher would be like Mrs. Okay, Miss L. Okay, she's a very good teacher. She does a lot of activities, enjoyable activities, experiences shared in the clinical setting, and that excites you. Then, professional competence also shows expert clinical skills. Okay, that's very important aside for confidence. Speaking of competence, okay, you should demonstrate as a nurse, okay, even first line nurse or first level nurse should somehow at a certain level, okay, demonstrate clinical skills with expertise. This is also very important if you are teaching laboratory classes, if you're teaching procedures, nursing procedures, if you're teaching or following up students in the related learning experience. Okay, skills are very important. Demonstrate clinical skills with expertise. Okay, then aims at excellence. Okay, every meeting, everything that the teacher does, the nurse educator does, should be aiming, should have the goal for excellence. And um, basically, if a good foundation here is the knowledge. Aside from skills, the teacher should have a very good knowledge, very good foundation of information, of knowledge with the subject matter that he or she is teaching, and skills, polishes skills, improves skills, enhances skills throughout the career. Okay, and when you say skills, since you're a teacher, we're talking about teaching skills. Okay, I know some, or if all or not all teachers at first really have this tendency to be nervous, to be shaky or rattled during the first day of teaching. But throughout the career, our career, we polish this and we become masters of it. That's something that should be expected, especially if you've been doing this responsibility, this vocation for a long time already. Okay, and learners also is trusting their teachers to somehow be accurate, to somehow, or not really somehow, but must be accurate with the information that he or she is giving, that he or she is sharing, the knowledge, the skills, even the attitude. Because once you're a teacher, you should walk your talk. Okay, speak in sense of accuracy. Okay, so you must demonstrate, okay, correctly. You must manifest it every now and then. So trust, building trust with your students, with your patients is very important. Okay, in other words, you should have a trusting relationship. And a positive role model to students, that's very important. Positive role model for learners, that's what I've been telling. If you're a teacher, if you're a nurse educator, or a nurse to your patient, you should be a positive role model. You should walk your talk, you should do what you preach. Okay, and that is somehow challenging to teachers, but it is expected to be done. Okay, then next we are talking about interpersonal relationships. Okay, so this is one skill that a nurse, okay, educator, and or a nurse in general should develop. especially during his student years. Interpersonal skills are very important since you're dealing with different personalities of people, of patients, of students, if you're a teacher, of significant others, family members of patients. Um, this is a skill, okay, very skillful in the interpersonal relationship, uh, the teacher or the nurse, and you should show a personal interest in learners. Okay, you should be sensitive. You should show respect to your learners, whether they are patients and their families or students. You should alleviate anxiety, okay, or difficulties at certain level, or stress. Um, if you're a teacher, a nurse, educator, a nurse, you should be accessible for them, available for them. Sometimes, especially nowadays, teachers go the extra mile. Okay, um, even if it's beyond working hours, students tend to contact you through Messenger, through your personal number or email, and sometimes, or if not most of the time, students really need your availability, your response. Okay, and let's appreciate the teachers who really go the extra mile also. And I hope students will also understand, okay, if teachers won't be able to reply beyond working hours, especially if they have their own personal time also. As a teacher, you are also expected to be fair, to be objective, to judge wisely your students in terms, or even their patients in terms of their um, manifestations in school, in terms of their performance in school. Okay, so what else? If you're a teacher, you should also express your points of view. You should also seek the points of view of your of your students, of your patients. And with that, students must be able to ask questions, if especially for clarification purposes. And as a teacher, you should initiate, right, or show or manifest a sense of warmth to your warmth acceptance to your students or to your patients. Okay, so as we're still in number two, but uh, these hallmarks, distinguishing features are really very challenging. Okay, you need to develop this skills, if I may use the word skill, okay, or these values, these attributes, okay, as a teacher. Um, Interpersonal skills, relationships also deal with evaluation of students, um, or assessment of students at first point. You should consider students, and I'm not only talking about one, two students, or two, three students, but all of your students in that sense. Consider their needs, consider their problems, their issues. Okay. Concern is with this type of dealing, all, if not most, um, teachers are not counselors. They're not licensed counselors. I know that as a nurse, you have a role to perform as a counselor, but um, it's also best to, as a teacher, it's also best to refer your student to proper counselors if you have one in your school. Okay, and this may, if you act one, this may lead to um, you know inaccuracy or improper way of doing it unless you have been trained. This may lead to taking advantages. This may lead to a lack of self-discipline on the part of the student or the teacher. Okay, so this must be done correctly. Okay, and speaking of relationships, good relationship. Okay, for what's this? working relationship, formal relationship, student-teacher relationship that is really formal, business in that sense. Um, or in general, good relationship enhances learning. Okay, there should be teacher-student or nurse-patient boundaries. Okay, it should be professional. Okay, that's the word, professional relationship. Okay, and as a teacher, you should also see your students as worthwhile individuals. Students are valuable, worthy persons, and soon to be colleagues. And as we say, teachers would not be present without the students. Okay, um, these students are worthwhile individuals who have something to offer in the profession. Okay, even though they're still students. Okay, and there are three approaches as being uh, seen in the presentation. There are at least three approaches on how to show that your students are really uh, worthy or valuable. First is empathic listening, and when you see empathic listening, listening is very important. Okay, when you say empathy, right, in your fundamentals of nursing, you put yourself in the situation of others. You put yourself in the shoes of others. Okay, so listening is very important. You show respect when you listen. You show care when you listen. You show understanding. Okay, when you listen, and when you listen, you should understand where the person, where the student, where the patient is coming from. Acceptance. Okay, accept students as they are, regardless of their their economic background, as regardless of their performance, academic performance, regardless of their race, religion, and all other factors that this really may affect acceptance. This acceptance may enhance, okay, the self-esteem of students or even the patients, and it convinces them that as a teacher, as a nurse, you have faith in the and desire and ability to you have the faith in them that they have the desire to learn, to change from what is done. And as a teacher, you will also be rewarded, okay, by the student by living up to the expectations. Most of the time, the student or the patient may go even more than what you are expecting from these students. Then communication, honest communication. So when you say honest communication, um, one is you really become objective, you become open, you tell what should be, what is to be told to let the student improve. Okay, the thoughts uh, should be clear. Okay, the expectations should be leveled. Topics should be clear to students. Um, Openness is very important. It should be done in a relaxed environment. When you try to give constructive criticism or remarks to students, um, better to accept criticism also as a teacher, not only the student. Then you identify the responsibilities of the learners for them to succeed. And these are the basic necessities, okay, of interpersonal relationships. Okay, the three: empathic listening, acceptance, honest communication. Although there will be more factors. Okay, so this is not only on nursing education, but generally all types of education or all courses. And if students experience them or experience these factors in teachers, especially if you have very good professional teacher-student relationship, soon Okay, or in the future, the student may apply this to their patients, or if they want to become a teacher as well, this will be applied. Okay, there's higher chance of application in their chosen profession. Then third, personal characteristics. Okay, so when you say personal characteristics, this is the personal characteristics of a teacher. Um, his charisma, his enthusiasm. Usually, this sets apart a teacher aside from the others mentioned characteristics. The teacher is very cheerful, very happy when he or she meets the students. The teacher has self-control, especially rising temper. Sometimes students can trigger your temper. Teaches flexibility, sense of humor. Okay? Sense of humor can also be challenging to some. Okay? Good speaking voice. Actually, that is my constant problem and my constant room for improvement. Okay, self-confidence, willingness to admit errors. We are also humans. Teachers are also humans. We commit mistakes, but as been mentioned earlier, you should be open for criticisms, constructive criticisms. Uh, Teachers have caring attitude. Yes, I know some of you remember teachers who are motherly in nature, who are fatherly in nature. Um, what else? Teachers are very good in delivery of topics, of activities. They make learning more interesting, fun, or pleasant. Okay, and they also maintain the standards of being a teacher, because this will also benefit the students, okay, for these efforts that they are doing. Okay, so that's four personal characteristics. Teaching practices. For teaching practices, these are the your skills in teaching, skills in delivering your topics, your skills. Okay, these are mechanics, these are methods, these are skills in the classroom and the clinical teaching setting. Okay, how do you teach it? How do you level it to students? How do you assure yourself and the students that they will grasp what you are teaching? Okay, so um, your thorough knowledge of the subject matter, how can you present it? Okay, in materials or in you as a first visual aid. Okay, so can you deliver it in an interesting manner, in organized manner, in a way that your students can really understand it? Can you go down to their level and let them understand it? Is it organized? Okay, so what else? Teaching subject matter in stimulating and inspiring way. Okay, and these are usually affected by the style of the teacher. It this varies. Okay, this varies. Okay, although if you try to see the references, there are bulleted ones that they suggest. Okay, but this varies from one teacher to another. And I know students tend to compare one teacher to another, or just like in a clinical setting, a patient compares one nurse to another, the way they care their teachers. So students must also understand that teachers have different styles. They have different personalities. They have different strategies. One thing should be common is interest to students. Okay, interest in teaching students. Their interest of becoming good, okay, naturally good as teachers. Then fifth, we have evaluation practices. Okay, for evaluation practices, you should set your you should set your expectations clear, level them at the start of the semester or the class. Okay, set your agenda, Set your expectations, both, okay, from the teachers and from the students. Okay, give timely feedbacks or remarks, showing their grades on time, although that would be challenging also on the part of the teacher. Feedbacks, whether they are positive feedbacks or quite kind of negative feedback, but it needs to be told to the student. Okay, that all should be given, but in a tactful manner. Okay, subtle manner, proper manner. Okay, and okay, one evaluation is giving of exam. Okay, and exams should be pertinent to the topics, to the subject matter, to the course. Um, Fairness in evaluation. Okay, um, that should be given. Okay, teacher should be objective in evaluating students. Okay, from assessment of students to evaluation of students, this should be the case. It should be objective. It should be fair. Okay, regardless of the student. And then number 6, availability to students. Okay, availability to students. So when you say availability to students, this is their accessibility to you. Okay, and when you say you are available, you show that you are accessible, but of course it should be on a span of time. You should set limits. Tendency right now is the students expect that teacher should be accessible 24 hours. Okay, you give their contacts, mobile number, messenger, email, and some students really demand or ask for your response. But of course, there are students also understanding you that you have personal time also. Okay, and when you say also availability to students, this is very important. You should see your students as collaborator, not competitors. Soon, this would be your colleagues. Okay, as a teacher, your student now, colleagues later. Okay, and I wish you blessings, God's blessings, for you to really reach that goal. Okay, and since they are collaborators, there are times that students will also what's this? Show your weakness. Okay, your rooms for improvement. Maybe not weakness, but rooms for improvement, especially at the end of the semester, right? They'll be evaluating you, and they may give comments, remarks constructively, and maybe there would be a time that you admit it yourself and try to improve also, and you meet their expectations as well. Okay, and on the other hand, this is a very good practice. This is what students also want. You show recognition. You acknowledge them. Okay, you commend them. Okay, with their performances. Do not only look on the rooms for improvement, but their achievements as well. Their small victories as a student. Okay, you congratulate them. Okay, maybe give them pat on the back, on the shoulders, right? And praise them in public. Okay, that's what students keep on inspiring or aspiring, keep on taking the challenge. Okay, when you give positive feedbacks to them. Moreover, is um, in stressful clinical situations, physically, okay, especially on the part of students, especially in clinical settings, if they do not know the procedure, or they're having hard time doing the procedure, physically, your presence is a big boost for them. Your assistance, your supervision is a big confidence booster for them. They know that you are going to supervise them, You're going to help them. You're going to facilitate the procedure with them, and also answering questions when there are blur topic. Okay, you enlighten them, and as a teacher, you act as a resource person. Okay, um, teacher clarity is very important here. Okay, in the availability of students. Okay, behaviors usually that teacher use. Okay, especially in topics should be learnable, and if you say that you are also available to them, very important is you also make yourself logical, okay, with dealing with them. Okay, um, sometimes there are clarifications that these students have, so you give more time of explaining. Okay, basically you give more time and effort, okay, to explain something. Okay, and giving more examples, right? So this is very important to students, and students will commend you for that. Okay, so again, you view your students as collaborators. Okay, students tend to become respectful and supportive when you admit your weaknesses. That's a sign of being human, as I've mentioned earlier. When you recognize your students both ways, in their triumphs and in their difficulties. In difficulties, you should recognize it also for you to know how to help them. Okay, and to be a good teacher, okay, my line for this: to be a good teacher, you have the desire, okay, you have the interest, you have the goal to be good. Right? Likewise, to be a good student, you have the desire to be a good student. To be a good nurse, you have the desire to be a good nurse. Okay, so again, those are the hallmarks of effective teaching in nursing education. So next video lecture, we are going to discuss the different principles of good teaching practice in undergraduate education. Okay, so first, um, again, this is in general setting. This can be seen not only in nursing but as in general, okay, in the undergraduate education. Okay, so these are the principles. But again, if you try to look at other sources, especially in the internet, they'll be giving you other, okay, principles. So we have one, two, three, okay, 7 principles. Right? So encourage student faculty contact, encourage cooperation among students, encourage active learning, give prompt feedback, emphasize time on task, communicate high expectations, respect diverse talents and ways of learning. So let's start. So these principles of good teaching usually sets as a framework, as a foundation for good teaching. Okay, these principles. And this is written based on college settings, undergraduate students, and they also apply to postgraduate or adult education settings. Um, and this can also be applied, okay, to nurse-patient relationship if you're in the clinical setting. So encourage student-faculty contact or nurse-patient contact. We are talking about professional one, as we have mentioned earlier. This is a professional student-faculty contact. Okay. Um, this should be initiated actually by the teacher, showing professionalism to students, so that in that way these millennial students or generation Z students will also show professionalism to you. Then second, encourage cooperation among students, patient, and also SO and or students in education setting should Okay, show cooperation for the improvement or during the learning process. Okay, this is a collaborative learning process. This is not only the work of the teacher, that not only the work of the nurse, but should be done in collaboration. Also, students to students. Okay, we should not develop competition, negative competition between or in among students, but a healthy competition. There are some students who would want to learn by groups. Okay, they're fond of study groups, of group projects, group activities. So you may employ that in your teaching strategy. Okay, so again, more on collaboration than competition. Then third, encourage active learning. From usually when you say active learning should be based on experiences, real life scenarios. Give chances for students to manipulate their learning, whether they express themselves in talking, in writing, in applying what they have learned, asking questions, sharing their reflections, their insights, their learning insights, the values that they've gained. Okay, so that those are samples of active learning. Giving prompt feedback, again, this is giving right assessment, right evaluation, giving your observation to your students, giving the objective grade. Okay, the what's this? Giving the deserved, okay, prize for these students. Then emphasize time on task. Basically, we're talking about time management. Okay, time management. Um, you should respect the time of your students as well. Your students will be respecting your time, and you also emphasize as a teacher, you know, their time on studying. Okay, students should develop what's this? Student habits, okay, student attitudes, and one basic to consider is time. Okay, take it seriously, using time efficiently from the start of the class to the end of the class. But sometimes there are some teachers who really makes use of time. They allot time for lectures and the other time for feedbacking, for processing the lectures. That's also good. Again, it's based on the strategy of the teacher, but the basic one here is to use time wisely. Communicate high expectations. Number six, this is a challenge, no? On the part of the teacher or the part of the student. Okay, you challenge each one, okay, constructively, positively. And both the teacher and the students will be expected to work smartly, work hardly, okay? And teachers may be surprised, okay, or not surprised at all, because learners are expected to rise to the challenge set by the teacher. Then number seven, respect diverse talents and ways of learning. Okay, and as we all know, as a teacher, and students will also expect that they are different from one another. So as a teacher, you respect their traditions, respect their beliefs, respect their practices, respect their academic performance differences, their differences in intelligence, differences in interests, all types of differences. Okay, this teacher should show respect, and at times teachers should be flexible with these differences. It's a big challenge, but that is what is also proper. Okay, but in the same way, okay, students should also adjust for the sake of objectivity, of fairness. Okay, okay, so that should be considered also. Okay, with number seven in terms of diversity. Okay, as we all say, okay, in diversity there should be, or there's also unity. There should be oneness also. There should be fairness also. Okay, so That's it for now. And for the next video lecture, we are going to talk about obstacles. Okay, this is a short one, but I expect you to be there. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking down notes. And hope that you have learned something and apply this when you aspire to become a nurse, to become a nurse lecturer, nurse educator, or a nurse in the clinical setting. So thank you. And this is Sir Emil. Um, and this is um, your nurse educator, an online nurse educator, saying God bless and continue aspiring, continue dreaming, continue working hard, studying smartly to get the license that you continuously aspire. So, thank you, and please share, like this video lecture.